The moment that changed everything didn't begin with anger. It began with silence. 1 second there was conversation, the sound of forks on plates, the low hum of families making small talk at picnic tables. The next second, the entire pavilion went quiet. I remember that more clearly than the slap itself. My name is Wesley Hoffman. I'm 47 years old, and for the past 20 years, I've been running operations at Caldwell Steel Manufacturing here in Akron. I'm also a divorced father trying to put my 16-year-old daughter Emma through high school and hopefully college after that. The divorce cost me half my savings, and Emma's college fund isn't where it should be. That's why this job matters more than just a paycheck. It's her future. I served 8 years in the Marines before I came to Caldwell. 2 tours in the Gulf, learned a discipline, learned planning, learned that preparation saves lives. Those lessons carried over to civilian work. In steel manufacturing, shortcuts kill people. I've seen it happen. The annual company picnic at the American Legion Hall was supposed to celebrate our best safety record in 15 years. 0 lost time accidents, 0 OSHA violations. I was proud of that record because I'd helped build it. 1 procedure at a time, 1 safety meeting at a time. 20 years of making sure everyone went home to their families every night. In this business, that's not guaranteed. Emma was supposed to come with me to the picnic, but she had SAT prep class. Go network, Dad, she'd said that morning, fixing her hair in the bathroom mirror. Maybe they'll finally promote you to something with better pay. She knew about the money stress. Smart kids always do, even when you try to hide it. I was talking with Linda Martinez from the union about renewing our safety training contract when Jeremy Caldwell walked over. He was 24, fresh out of some fancy MBA program, and his father Roger had just made him assistant plant director. That was 6 months ago. Ever since then, he'd been finding ways to remind everyone that he was being groomed to take over. Jeremy looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine. Pressed khakis, polo shirt with the company logo, expensive watch. Everything about him screamed privilege. The workers called him college boy behind his back, and not in a friendly way. He interrupted our conversation without so much as a nod to Linda. Hoffman, we need to talk about those lockout procedures. They're slowing down the line. I kept my voice level. Safety protocols aren't optional, Jeremy. You know that. Everything's optional if you want to stay competitive, he said, loud enough for the families at nearby tables to hear. Maybe it's time for some fresh thinking around here. Linda shifted beside me. She'd been dealing with workplace safety issues for 15 years, had seen what happened when companies cut corners. Her expression said she was ready to jump in, but I gave her a slight shake of the head. This needed to stay between Jeremy and me, at least for now. That's when I should have walked away. Instead, I said what I was thinking. Fresh thinking doesn't trump 20 years of keeping people alive. He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne, something expensive that probably cost more than most of our guys made in a day. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the decision being made. Then his hand came up fast and caught me across the jaw. Not hard enough to knock me down, but intentional enough that everyone saw it. Everyone heard it. The pavilion went silent. Kids stopped running around. Conversations died mid-sentence. Linda's mouth fell open. I could feel the heat spreading across my cheek, but I kept my hands at my sides. Every instinct from my Marine days was telling me to respond, to put this kid on the ground and teach him about respect. Instead, I looked past Jeremy and saw his father Roger standing near the buffet table. He'd seen it. He didn't move. There's your fresh thinking, Jeremy said, straightening his polo shirt like he'd just finished a business presentation. I didn't react, didn't argue, didn't swing back. Instead, I looked him in the eye and said, "This conversation isn't over." Then I walked away, because there are moments when control matters more than pride. And I understood that in real time. But this didn't start at the picnic. It started 6 months earlier when Jeremy joined the company. Roger announced it during our monthly safety meeting, held in the break room that still smelled like coffee and industrial lubricant. He'll be learning operations from the ground up, he said. That was the phrase he used, ground up. Within a week, Jeremy had an office bigger than mine and a title that put him above supervisors who'd been there since the Carter administration. Men who'd started on the floor, worked their way up, earned their positions through competence and time. Now they were taking orders from a kid whose biggest accomplishment was a graduate degree he'd finished 3 months ago. He wasn't stupid, I'll give him that. He could read production reports like a native speaker. He understood profit margins, efficiency metrics, all the MBA buzzwords that sound impressive in boardrooms. What he didn't understand was that you can't speed up a steel mill the way you speed up a spreadsheet. Steel doesn't care about your quarterly projections. Our first real conflict came during a routine maintenance shutdown on the rolling mill. These shutdowns happen every 6 weeks, mandatory downtime to prevent catastrophic failures. It's like changing the oil in your car, except if you skip it, people die. Jeremy wanted to skip the full lockout procedure to save 3 hours. We're behind schedule, he said, tapping his tablet like the numbers would magically change. Make it work. Can't do it, I told him. OSHA requires full energy isolation. No shortcuts. I'm not asking for shortcuts. I'm asking for efficiency. In this business, there's no difference. He smiled, but there was nothing friendly about it. You know, West leadership isn't about following every rule in the book. It's about making smart decisions under pressure. Tell that to Jimmy Morrison's widow, I said. That stopped him cold. Jimmy Morrison died in 2001 when someone skipped lockout on the furnace controls. I was there. I helped pull him out. The image still visits me some nights, and Jeremy wasn't even in high school yet when it happened. That was different, he said after a pause. No, it wasn't. Dead is dead, whether it's 2001 or 2024. I walked away from that conversation, but I could feel him watching me. That's when I started keeping notes. Nothing formal, just a small notebook I carried in my shirt pocket. Times, dates, what was said. Military habit, documentation saves lives too. After that, Jeremy started pushing harder. Skip the pre-shift safety briefing to save 10 minutes, reduce the lockout time on routine maintenance. Run the line faster than manufacturer specifications, always with the same justification: efficiency, competitiveness, fresh thinking. The worst part was watching the younger workers look to him for guidance. These were guys in their 20s, new to industrial work, still learning that respect gets earned through competence, not given through titles. Jeremy's degree impressed them. His confidence convinced them they didn't know enough yet to be scared. I covered for him more than I should have. I'd quietly restore the safety protocols after he left. I'd slow the line back down to safe speeds. I'd make sure the briefings happened, even if I had to run them myself on my own time. I told myself I was protecting the company, protecting the workers. Really, I was protecting him from his own inexperience. One afternoon in late spring, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, Wes, I'll be running this place soon. Might want to think about adapting to new management styles. Management is earned." I said carefully, "It's not inherited, not in this family." That's when I understood this wasn't just about workplace efficiency. This was about bloodline versus merit. His father had built Caldwell Steel from a 2-bay machine shop, earned every bit of success through sweat and smart decisions. Roger understood steel, understood workers, understood the difference between theoretical knowledge and practical wisdom. Jeremy believed that success had been promised to him, that his MBA was equivalent to 2 decades of experience. The truth was, I liked Roger. He'd hired me when I came back from overseas. Took a chance on a Marine with industrial training but no civilian experience. He paid fair wages, maintained good benefits, treated his people with respect. But he had a blind spot the size of his son's ego. 2 weeks before the picnic, things escalated past the point where I could quietly fix them. Jeremy came into the plant during second shift and ordered the crew to bypass the interlock on the shear line. Said we had a rush order to fill, needed to make up time. The shear line cuts steel plates with hydraulic pressure that could slice through a car engine. The interlock exists because that machine can take your arm off in half a second. When I found out the next morning, I called him into my office. It wasn't much of an office, just a converted storage room with a desk and filing cabinet, but it was mine. 20 years had earned me that much. "You could have killed someone," I said, showing him the incident report I'd filled out. "Nobody got hurt." "That's not the point. That interlock exists because I know what it's for," he interrupted. "I made a judgment call based on production needs. You made a dangerous decision based on zero experience." His jaw tightened. "I won't be second-guessed by a floor supervisor. I'm not second-guessing you. I'm stopping you." For the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. The confidence wavered just for a moment. "My father will hear about this." "Tell him," I said. "And while you're at it, tell him about the OSHA inspector who's coming next week. Tell him about the insurance audit scheduled for next month. Tell him about the liability if someone gets hurt because you wanted to save 20 minutes on a rush order." I'd been in contact with our insurance carrier about the safety violations, as required by company policy. They were getting nervous about our risk profile. OSHA had scheduled a routine inspection based on our industry classification. Jeremy didn't know any of this because he'd never bothered to learn the regulatory environment. After he left my office that day, I did something I'd never done before in 20 years of employment. I started documenting everything systematically. Every safety violation, every bypassed procedure, every time he overruled a protocol without understanding the consequences. I kept copies in my truck, copies at home, copies in my safety files at work. 20 years in the Marines teaches you that preparation wins battles, not good intentions. The documentation wasn't just for protection, it was for accountability. If something went wrong, if someone got hurt, there would be a record showing that proper procedures had been established and deliberately ignored. In the military, we called it covering your six. In civilian life, it's called doing your job. Emma noticed the stress at home. One evening over dinner, she asked, "Dad, is everything okay at work? You've been really quiet lately." I looked at my daughter across the kitchen table of our small rental house. This smart, determined girl who deserved every opportunity I could provide. Just some workplace politics, honey. Nothing you need to worry about. But I was worried. Emma's college applications were due in 6 months. Ohio State had already shown interest based on her grades, but even with in-state tuition, I needed every dollar from this job. Starting over at 47 wasn't impossible, but it wasn't ideal either. The week of the picnic, Jeremy made his biggest mistake yet. He ordered the night crew to remove safety guards from the conveyor system, not bypass them. Remove them entirely. Said they were slowing down material flow and we needed to catch up on a delayed shipment. The guards were there to prevent workers from getting caught in the machinery during routine maintenance. Without them, the conveyor became a death trap. I found out about it at 5:30 a.m. when I came in early to review the night shift reports. Tony Marcelli, the night supervisor, pulled me aside before I even reached my office. "Wes, we got a problem," he said, his voice low. "College boy was here around midnight, had us pull the safety guards off conveyor line 3. All of them. Every last one. Said it was temporary, just for the night shift. But those guards don't go back on easy. It's a 4-hour job minimum. I walked out to the line and saw it immediately. The conveyor ran 200 feet through the main production floor, carrying steel plates from the cutting station to the finishing area. Without the guards, workers could fall into the machinery, get caught in the rollers, or worse. It looked like something from the early 1900s, before workplace safety became a priority. Who signed off on this? I asked Tony. Jeremy said he had authority from his father. I knew that was a lie. Roger would never approve something this dangerous, MBA son or not. This was Jeremy making unilateral decisions because he thought his last name gave him that power. "Get a crew together," I told Tony. "We're putting those guards back on before day shift starts. That's going to push us behind schedule on the Peterson order. Better behind schedule than explaining to someone's family why their husband didn't come home." We spent 4 hours reinstalling the safety guards. It meant day shift started late and we missed our delivery window on a $50,000 order. But everyone went home with the same number of fingers they came to work with. When Jeremy found out, he stormed into my office like he owned the place, which technically his family did. "You had no authority to countermand my orders," he said, not bothering to sit down. "I had every authority to prevent workplace deaths. Those guards were slowing production to a crawl. Those guards were keeping people alive. We lost the Peterson contract because of your interference. We avoided an OSHA investigation because of my interference." He leaned forward across my desk. "This is insubordination. Hoffman, pure and simple. This is leadership, Jeremy, something you wouldn't recognize. That was the moment I saw the real Jeremy Caldwell. Not the privileged MBA graduate or the boss's son, but the insecure young man who knew his authority came from bloodline, not competence." His face flushed red, and for a second I thought he might swing at me right there in my office. Instead, he straightened up and said, "You're finished here." "I'll make sure of it." After he left, I pulled out my notebook and wrote down every detail of the conversation. Time, date, witnesses present, exact quotes. Then I called Linda Martinez. "Linda, it's Wes. I need to file a formal safety complaint. About Jeremy. About systematic violations that are going to get someone killed. How bad is it?" "Bad enough that I'm documenting everything for OSHA." There was silence on the line for a moment. Linda had been fighting workplace safety battles for 15 years. She understood the implications. "You know this means war, right?" she said finally. "It's already war. I'm just picking up weapons." The morning after the picnic, Roger called me into his office. He looked older than his 59 years, tired around the eyes like he'd been up all night. His office was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the main production floor. Through the windows, you could see the entire operation. "Watch steel being transformed from raw material into finished product." Wes, about yesterday. "Check your email first," I said. He opened his laptop and scrolled through the attachments I'd sent the night before. Safety violation reports, OSHA documentation, incident summaries, photos of the removed safety guards, timeline of events, everything I'd been collecting for the past 6 months. As he read, his expression changed from irritation to concern to something approaching fear. These weren't minor procedural disagreements. This was systematic disregard for worker safety by someone in a position of authority. "This is more serious than I thought," he said finally. "It's exactly as serious as I've been telling you for 6 months. Jeremy says you've been undermining his authority from day one. Jeremy's authority ends where worker safety begins." Roger closed the laptop and rubbed his temples. "He's my son, Wes, and those are my people on the floor. I've worked with some of those guys for 15 years. I coached their kids in Little League. I went to their weddings. I'm not going to let your son get them killed because he's in a hurry to prove something to you. What do you want me to do? What you should have done 6 months ago. Set boundaries. He's learning the business. He's learning the wrong lessons." Roger stood up and walked to the window overlooking the production floor. Below us, workers moved through their routines with practiced efficiency. These were skilled tradesmen, most with decades of experience, all depending on management to maintain safe working conditions. "I built this company from nothing," Roger said without turning around. "Started with 2 guys and a rented machine shop. Now we employ 200 people, support 200 families. That means something. It means everything," I agreed. "That's why this matters." He turned back to face me. "I need time to think about this. While you're thinking, I'll be talking to OSHA. You'd really do that? File a formal complaint against Jeremy?" "I already did, last Friday." The silence stretched between us for a long moment. Roger had built his company on trust, on treating people fairly, on maintaining high standards. Now his son was threatening everything he'd worked for. "This will destroy any chance Jeremy has of running this company," he said quietly. "Maybe that's for the best." That afternoon, I got a call from Linda Martinez. "The union's filing a formal grievance," she said, "about the safety violations and the assault at the picnic." "Good, Roger's not going to like it. Roger's going to have bigger problems than union grievances if Jeremy keeps making these decisions." 2 days later, the OSHA inspector arrived. Paul Anderson showed up on a Wednesday morning with a clipboard and 25 years of experience. I'd known Paul from other plants around Ohio, respected his thoroughness. He wasn't the kind of inspector who could be charmed or intimidated. He followed regulations like gospel because he'd seen what happened when people didn't. He spent 3 days going through our procedures, talking to workers, reviewing incident reports, professional, methodical, by the book. Jeremy tried to shadow him the first day, offering explanations and justifications. Paul politely told him to stay out of the way. On Friday afternoon, Paul called a meeting with Roger, Jeremy, Linda, and me. We gathered in the conference room that Roger used for client meetings, the one with the mahogany table and framed photos of successful projects. "I'm recommending a formal investigation," Paul said, sliding a folder across the table. "Multiple procedure violations. Safety protocols bypassed without authorization. Documentation irregularities." Jeremy leaned forward, his confidence finally cracking. "This is political. Hoffman's trying to sabotage me because he doesn't like change." Paul looked at him with the patience of someone who'd heard every excuse imaginable. "Son, I've been doing this for 25 years. Politics don't cause machinery to malfunction. Shortcuts do. We would have made all our production targets." Jeremy insisted. "At what cost?" Paul asked. "You willing to explain to someone's family why their husband didn't come home because you needed to save 20 minutes on a delivery schedule?" The room went quiet. Roger cleared his throat. "What are you recommending, Paul?" "Full review of safety protocols, retraining for all supervisory staff, and," Paul glanced at Jeremy, "immediate removal of anyone who lacks authority to modify established safety procedures." Jeremy's face went red. "I have an MBA from Wharton. I don't need oversight from some government bureaucrat." "You need oversight from someone who knows the difference between theory and reality," I said. That was the moment Jeremy's future at Caldwell Steel ended, though he didn't know it yet. Paul Anderson recommended him for removal from any role involving safety decisions. The insurance company threatened to increase our premiums by 40% if violations continued. The union filed a formal grievance that would have shut down production during arbitration. Roger made the announcement the following Monday. Jeremy was being transferred to corporate development, which everyone understood meant he was being moved away from actual operations. The announcement was brief, professional, and final. A week later, Roger called me back to his office. "The board wants to offer you assistant plant director," he said, "full authority over safety protocols. Direct reporting to me, not through department supervisors." "What about Jeremy?" "Jeremy will be pursuing other opportunities. He's not suited for operations management." It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no confrontations, just the quiet reality of consequences. Jeremy left Caldwell Steel 6 weeks later for a consulting position in Columbus. Better suited to his skill set was how Roger put it in his farewell email to the company. 1 year later, I stood in the same American Legion Hall for the annual company picnic. This time we were celebrating our second consecutive year without lost time accidents. My title read Assistant Plant Director on the Safety Award plaque they presented that evening. More importantly, every single one of my people had gone home safe for 730 straight days. Emma was there with me, proud of her old man for the first time in years. She was a senior now, accepted to Ohio State Engineering on partial scholarship. The promotion had given me enough salary increase to cover the rest without borrowing. Sometimes doing the right thing pays off in ways you don't expect. The evening was winding down when a young machinist named Danny Rodriguez approached me. He'd started at Caldwell just after Jeremy left, fresh out of technical college. "Hey, Mr. Hoffman, wanted to thank you for what you did last year. My dad told me about it. What did he tell you? That you stood up to the boss's son when he was putting people at risk. Said it took real guts. Took preparation," I corrected him. "Guts without planning is just stupidity." Danny nodded like he was filing that information away for future use. That's what I hoped for from the younger generation, practical wisdom instead of reckless courage. Later, Linda Martinez found me near the buffet table. "You know what I learned from all this?" she said. "What's that?" "Documentation beats confrontation every time. You can't argue with paperwork." She was right. I'd learned something important over the past year. You don't beat entitled privilege by losing your temper. You beat it by being better prepared, more professional, and absolutely relentless about doing things the right way. The loudest person in the room rarely controls the structure underneath it. Looking around the hall that night, watching families enjoy themselves without worrying about workplace safety, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Satisfaction. Not from revenge or payback, but from knowing that preparation and patience had protected something that mattered. Jeremy had learned that inherited authority means nothing without earned respect. I'd learned that sometimes the best way to fight back is to let the system work the way it's supposed to. And Emma had learned that her father stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult. The music started up again. Conversations resumed. The picnic continued without incident, no drama, no confrontation, just the quiet satisfaction of problems solved the right way. If you've ever dealt with workplace bullies, especially ones protected by family connections or corporate politics, here's what I want you to remember. Documentation is your best weapon, not your fists or your temper. Keep records, follow procedures, trust the system, but make sure you understand how it works before you need it. Most importantly, remember that your coworkers depend on you to maintain standards, even when management doesn't. Experience beats education every time, but only if you're willing to stand up for what experience has taught you. Some battles are worth fighting. All of them are worth fighting the right way. That's how you handle privilege gone wrong, with patience, preparation, and absolute commitment to protecting the people who count on you to do your job right.